It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice right here, right now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Appreciate you joining with us. Those of you who have logged on and found us on americasvoicenow.org, glad to see you out there. I see quite a few folks out there. Let's see, I've got Montreal, Lincoln, I think that's Nebraska, Chesterfield, Clarksville, Branson, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and Houston, Texas, among others. See Seattle out there and Florida. Thank you for joining with us live and participating with us via our video stream or audio stream, if that's how you're capturing our program. Glad to have you on board. Want to thank our sponsors and our friends who make sure that this program is available to folks both on terrestrial radio as well as on the web. And our sponsors are an important part of our program. And if you'd like to be one, by all means, please send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. Simply put in the subject line, sponsor, and I'll know exactly what that means. Love to have you. If you can help us by donating some fundage to our enterprises and efforts, by all means, please feel free to do that. Please feel free to do that. You can go to our website at americasvoicenow.org, and you can either sponsor us with a monthly donation and a pledge, or you can do so on a one-time basis. You can also mail us funding if that's easier for you, or if you'd like to use a money order or a check or something. And you can mail funds to us by sending those to our post office box, which is P.O. Box. It's America's Voice Now, P.O. Box 1195, and that's in West Plains, Missouri, 65775. So we're going to talk about 4 different topics this morning. As you know, I try to put a range out there of topics that we're going to address, simply so that you have an idea of what the issues are that we're going to talk about. And in the first one, we're going to talk a little bit about the Common Core issue that's out there in public right now, in which a panelist who is a well, at one point in time was the Connecticut. Excuse me. He was the Connecticut Division of Education's leader and Secretary of Education. Excuse me, I couldn't think of the right word. And he's a Harvard professor, and he was a panelist at the Center for American Progress debate that occurred on January 31st. So, in that, he's basically saying that your children belong to all of us, and your children are not yours. Now, I got to tell you, America, you hear me do this show on a routine basis every day, and sometimes you hear me get upset about things that are going on out there. You hear me use sometimes some harsh rhetoric. You know, I use the word treason and tyranny frequently. And I'm going to begin a process where I'm going to encourage you to begin to do the same. Now, there's a lot of folks out there that are flat out afraid, and I get that. I understand it. I understand why. I also recognize that your fear is exactly what they're counting on. And when you hear someone say to you that your child is not yours, that they belong to the state, for us to deal with as we choose, because those of you who are in disagreement with Common Core and the principles are a tiny minority of extremists. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for you to get your back up. It is time for you to begin to recognize that this is a direct verbal threat. It's not a warning. It's a threat. It's no different than someone walking up to you and saying, pointing a gun at you and saying, if you don't do as I say, I'm going to harm you. I'm going to injure you. And I'm going to injure your children. With all due respect, America, I've had enough. And you should say the same. It's time for us to turn this thing around. It's time for us to begin to use the same level of malevolence that is directed at us. We're going to talk more about that. Your child is not yours, according to Common Core. Oh, really? Let me tell you something. You threaten my kid, Paul Revelle, and you're going to have to go live on Mars. You understand? Okay. Our second topic, Obamacare. The site, turns out, and this is not me saying this is our U.S. intelligence agencies, who we've spent almost $1 trillion to develop a spying system on us. And they've come out now and they're saying that the software was developed by malicious hackers in Belarus, at least partially, and that they believe that they've inserted malicious software code into the application. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about how the fact that Michelle Obama's best pal from college was the person who won the bid to build Obamacare.org or .gov or whatever it is. And the fact of the matter is, this company then went and hired subcontractors in the Republic of Belarus, which is a dictatorship under anyone's definition, and responsible and well known for their malicious software and malicious hacking of U.S. systems, U.S. individuals, trying to steal credit card information, so forth and so on. Wow. So here we are allowing a state-sponsored terrorist nation, frankly, to develop the software code that's going to be capturing all of the data, the personal information, including your name, your age, your address, your social security number, your phone number, your bank records, your healthcare records, and we're going to have the software developed by a malicious hacker nation. I gotta love it. And you want to know why we shouldn't be signing up for Obamacare? All right, our third topic is the TTIP, and I'm going to hit on the third and fourth topics are going to be the TTIP, the Trans-Pacific, or I'm sorry, the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership. That's the TTIP, and this is essentially a loss of sovereignty and a co-merger or a co-mingling of our sovereignty in the United States with that of the European or Eurozone nations. A bigger mistake we couldn't make, ladies and gentlemen. But this is an Obamacare initiative. It's been negotiated in secret, and it coincides with the TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, that is another trade agreement being negotiated now for the past 5 years in complete and utter secrecy, so dire that not even Congress is allowed to see it. Well, WikiLeaks managed to get a hold of 2 chapters out of the 26 that are out there, and I hold one of them in my hand here. Now, this particular chapter is the one on environmental issues, and it's covering 12 nations, and by the way, China is now being discussed by the Obamacare regime for inclusion. And when I talked to you, I went through this and I read it. It's some, 20 some odd pages. And I went through it and I made some copious notes here about the issues of what this thing commits us to. And we're going to go through some of it. I may not get through all of it this morning. I actually really probably need to do a complete TTIP review because this is only one aspect of it. This is only the environmental chapter. Really. There's an intellectual property chapter I haven't even gotten through yet. And the intellectual property chapter is even more dire because it's sponsored and run by the MPAA and the RIAA. Those 2 groups are the Motion Picture Association of America and the Recording Industry Association of America. And they're interested in predominantly doing one thing and one thing alone. That is making sure that you don't have the right to even hum a song without emptying your pockets. Yes, the popular one on the radio that you like? Right. You can't even talk about the movie at the water cooler without shoving a quarter into the MPAA's pocket. So we're going to talk about the Transatlantic Trade and Investment Partnership, which for all intents and purposes would tie us together with perhaps the most corrupt organization in Europe, which in a report this morning from the Free Beacon has come out, and the corruption in the European Union has hit such breathtaking new levels that it drains more than $160 billion annually from the economy of the member nations. We need to join another boondoggle run by an organization of elitists, statists, and quite frankly, thieves, carpetbaggers, and scum, like we need to shoot ourselves in the head. All right, so before we get too much further, and I want to touch on this thing with, or I want to get onto this thing with this Podesta organization. Now, this guy who came out with this is he was a panelist on this think tank discussion that occurred, and the panel, and for the record, the organization that he represents or he was participating in is the Center for American Progress, or CAP. That's a liberal think tank, and it's run by and it was created by John Podesta. Now, John Podesta, if you recall, was originally a chief of staff of the Bill Clinton administration, and he's now been brought back in by the Obama administration to, fix and patch all the holes in his administration. What's very disturbing about this is some of the things that Paul Revelle, who's the former Secretary of Education from Massachusetts, and he's a stringent Common Core supporter, and some of the things that he said. And what I want you to recognize as we go through this is that it is time for America to begin, and I'm talking about every American. I don't care what your political ideology is. I don't care where you sit on the fence. I don't care whether you're a liberal or a conservative, whether you're a patriot or you're a puke. It doesn't really matter. What you need to recognize is that this transcends political ideology. I mean, we're talking here about the lives of your children. And I got to tell you, what bothers me the most about it is that when we talk about that, I have heard parents say to me over and over and over and over again, I would do anything. I would die for my children. I would do whatever it took to protect and preserve my children. You would you? Well, let me tell you something. Now you got your chance to prove it. I'm not suggesting that you might have a chance. I'm telling you right now that you have a chance to put your money where your mouth is, or get your big foot out of your mouth and go lay down in a corner somewhere. If you are a parent and you are not taking this Common Core threat to your child seriously, or your grandchildren, or your great-grandchildren, then I got to tell you something. You ain't what you say you are. And I'm tired of mealy-mouthed, two-bit, big-mouthed people walking around, yakking about this, blabbing about that, all gums flapping, no action. Well, it's time you began to take some action, ladies and gentlemen, and it's time that you got on the true path of patriotism. When I say that, I mean it is time for you to begin to take some radical action. What do I mean by that? Oh, I know the NSA, boy, they're spinning the dials right now, turning this up. He's going to go ahead and say it. We got him. Well, sorry to disappoint, boys. The truth of the matter is, the hubris and the arrogance of these people knows no boundaries, number one. Their statements are blatantly false, to the point where they could be construed, if these people were under oath, as perjury. Common Core is anything but a state-led organization. It is a nationally led, which violates not only most state constitutions, but federal law. And if they begin to use it in your school system, it is time that you, as an American parent, and I don't care what your ideology is, I don't care what your color is, I don't care what your ethnic heritage is, I don't care what your sexual orientation is, I don't care what your religion is. I'm going to tell you this right now. You need to revolt. You need to revolt by saying, my child is not going to go to that school. And to make matters even more apparent, you need to start attending every school board meeting in force. You and your family and your neighbors and your church members and your friends and your coworkers and your next door neighbors, the people that you see and bump into at the store. I don't care where, how, when, why, what, under what circumstances. You people need to move in force. And you need to go in and hijack your school board meetings and say there will be no silent discussion here in a back room. There's no private meetings. This is public. We're the parents. You allegedly represent us, and we are going to tell you what you're going to do. And if you institute Common Core here, we will decimate and rid this school of children, and you will have nothing but an empty husk of a building to sit in and moan. We will cease paying our taxes, and we will not contribute to the demise of our nation and the demise of our own children. And then you need to remove them from office. And you need to do so with prejudice. Let me explain to you exactly what I mean. I don't know what state you're in, and I don't even care. It's up to you to figure out what are the laws surrounding your state about getting someone out of office who has betrayed you. And this counts not only for your school board members, but you can take it up the hill and start using it against your state representatives, your city council members, your mayors, and everybody else. And if you don't have a law that allows you to recall or remove someone from office for dereliction of duty, malfeasance in office, or high crimes and misdemeanors, then you better get one passed. If they refuse to accept the will of the citizens that allegedly they represent in your school board, then you remove them from office. Don't wait for an election. I'm tired of hearing that. I'm tired of hearing, in 2014, no, stop right there. First of all, you're not going to get all the traitors in one fell swoop. Usually these are staged, and so you only get one or two or maybe three board members at a time, at best. Don't wait. Remove them. Secondarily, remove them by recall if necessary, by court if you must. Find a local attorney in your community who will stand up and say, I will participate. I will not allow my children and your children to be abused in this way. I will not allow our nation to be destroyed. And I will put my money where my mouth is, and I will be the person who files the paperwork. You can all be the plaintiffs in the case, but I will represent it. Attorneys out there, why are you sitting around waiting for something to float into you and take on a new project or take on a new case? Go out and make one. Oh, I forgot. That's right. You owe your allegiance to whom? The court. You are an officer of the court. You are an attorney at law, not an attorney in law. And if you don't know what that means, ladies and gentlemen, go look it up under the Bar Association. The simple truth is, your attorneys no longer represent you, and they never have. They've always represented the court. They belong and owe their true allegiance to the court, irrespective of how much money you pay them. So you attorneys out there who got any brass, get off your high horse and start doing the right thing for this country before you find yourselves strung up when the fascists gain control. Don't forget, the first people they go after are the intellectuals, the educated, and all the lawyers. Need I remind you? The simple truth is remove them from office. Don't wait for an election. Get them out by going to court, recall them, go out there and hold a no-confidence vote. Begin a campaign to discredit your school board member. Discredit them. Find out, who are they sleeping with? Hire a private investigator. I don't care. Find out how many DUIs they got in their background. Figure out where they spend their time in their evenings. Figure out what you've got to do to get them out. It is time that we went on the offensive. And until you recognize that, America, You will continue to go about hobbled and hogtied. Make it your life's work to do what you've been saying all along. Well, I would do anything to protect and save and preserve my children. Oh, really? Put your money where your mouth is. Or shut up. Put your money where your mouth is. Put your time, your effort, your energy, your resources, your money, your car, your house on the line. Do it now. Not next week, not next month, not next year, not in November, not in 2016. Do it now. Boy, that guy is really mad. I don't get it. Well, did you read the article? No, I bet you haven't. And when you read it and you understand what he's telling you, if you are not fired up, then you and I got nothing further to discuss. He says the critics are a tiny minority who oppose standards altogether. And it's unfair, he says, because the children belong to all of us. Let me tell you something, Mr. Reville, whatever your name is. It's a good thing we're down to the last 2 minutes of this program. If you think for 1 second I would even let you see my children, lay your filthy, dirty, polluted, communistic, totalitarian, statist eyes on my child, you have another thing coming. And I don't, Mr. Reville, react well to threats. I'm so mad about this article. Not because of what it tells us, because the arrogance and the hubris, the entitlement mentality that scum like this has, that they believe that they have the right to take your child from you and mold and manipulate and twist and bend their mind. You think you own my kid, huh? We'll see about that, Mr. Reville. And for the record, it's a good thing you live over in Massachusetts and not here. If you lived in Missouri, you'd have to move to Massachusetts. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. I'm so mad I didn't even get a chance to read our sponsor names. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to read our sponsor names. So if you want to go get a cup of coffee, do it now. When we come back, we're going to talk about Obamacare, how the site was developed by hackers in the Belarus Republic, a totalitarian regime known for their hacking. I tell you what, I want to read you a couple of the quotes from this piece of garbage before we get there. So we're going to start that topic, but we're going to take a couple minutes to finish wrapping on this one. We'll be right back. You're listening to America's Voice Now. All right. Man, am I fired up about this Common Core nonsense. You know why? Because what bothers me about this is that this is treason. Not in a political sense, in a parental sense. It's treason on a personal level. It's treason against not your nation, but against your neighbor. And if there's one thing I hate, it's a traitor. We got a nation full of them. And pieces of garbage like this guy They really take the cake. You know, this guy, first of all, he's the former Secretary of Education in Massachusetts. You wonder why these eastern cities are so screwed up. Here's what he has to say. By the way, for the record, this group that sponsored this happy little talk was founded by Podesta, John Podesta, who was, again, the former chief of staff of Clinton, and he's now an advisor to Obama. And they're promoting and pushing this Common Core thing. And they had this Paul Revelle, former Secretary of Education from Massachusetts, and here's what he says. To be sure, there's always a small voice. And I think these voices get amplified in the midst of these arguments of people who were never in favor of standards in the first place and never wanted to have any kind of testing or accountability. And those voices get amplified. But those are a tiny minority. An overwhelming majority of teachers are saying this is something, as panelist Toby Romer said, that makes sense. Okay. First of all, let's understand something. We are not a small voice. We are the masters of our own destiny, and you are the master of your family. And if you allow a piece of human offal, O-F-F-A-L, don't know what that word means? Look it up. It's the viscera that comes out, charred viscera that comes out of an animal that you have gutted. It's not A-W-F-U-L, awful, like as in, ooh, that's an awful skirt you're wearing. It's awful, as in, I saw the awful fall to the ground. It's also known as a trash heap, the midden heap. This guy is a piece of human offal. And let me tell you something. This isn't a small voice of Americans. And we're not getting amplified. What this is parents who are, and the mistake he makes of saying that parents, these are people who are never in favor of standards. That's a complete, absolute, unmitigated lie. As a parent, I'm fully for standards. In fact, I'm for the following standards. Let's make sure that every teacher's had a psychological and psychiatric evaluation. Let's make sure that every teacher has made sure that, one, they are not a member of a union and therefore owe their allegiance to our children, not to their own pocketbook or their union party, as it were. And let's be candid, ladies and gentlemen. Unions are just another religion. Did I tick you off yet? Good, I hope so. If you're a union member, let's admit the reality of this. That it is a religion to you. You're more interested in pursuing that little ideology, that faith that you have, than you are in actually taking care of our children. How do I know that? Well, and I'm not going to throw every teacher into that group, but I got to tell you, it's clear and apparent that the vast majority are. Otherwise, we wouldn't have teachers' unions. We'd have school choice, wouldn't we? Why is it that teachers and their unions will do anything to improve their own lot and at the cost and expense of your child? The truth is, we do want standards. We want standards in education that show that a child who's going in there and learning the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, the science, that they have a quality education that truthfully and accurately provides them with the tools that are necessary to move forward in life. But I want it unbiased. I don't want it tainted with your ideology and your political concepts. I don't want it tainted with your sexual hang-ups. I don't want it tainted with your religious hang-ups. You see, I don't want it polluted. And if you can't do that, then don't be a teacher. If you can't keep your mouth shut about your own personal attitudes and beliefs, then listen, I'm not a teacher. But then again, I'm not influencing young minds. You wouldn't want me to be a teacher. You know why? Because I would not have the ability to sit there and allow drivel that I knew to be a lie in a history book go unchallenged. I would have to say, I'm sorry, that's not how it went. And let's pull out the other historical documents that surely support the position I have, and I'm going to show you why you're being manipulated and lied to. Little Johnny, little Sally, little Betty. I want standards, but the standards I want show that are for the benefit of the children. That means you as the teacher have to meet a higher standard, not the other way around. I'm in favor of standards, and we're not a tiny minority. They might try to denigrate us as parents and try to show out there that we're an extremist minority. But I got to tell you something. The overwhelming majority of teachers are not saying that this makes sense. In fact, the overwhelming majority of teachers have no clue what is even going on. They don't know what the rules look like. They don't realize that they only have a 15% margin with which to be able to modify the syllabus and the actual materials. They have no clue about the fact that these tests are going to be given on a computer where they're not even allowed to see the test questions. They also have no clue that they are going to be graded on the results that the children produce in these tests. And so they have to teach to the test, not actually teach real practical applicable knowledge. And the truth of the matter is, the tests are being made by idiots like this guy. Quote, again, the argument about where it came from, I think, privileges certain sorts of fringe voices. Fringe? About federalism and states' rights and things of that nature. When really what we're doing at the national level here now, he made a mistake there, that was his Freudian slip. Then he goes and corrects it and says state by state, is what a lot of our states thought made sense individually. Well, for the record, let's talk a little bit about my state. Our governor, who's a member of the National Governors Association, has instituted Common Core without even so much as bringing it to the legislature. First and foremost, he took a lot of federal money to institute a program which he never even went and passed by the legislature. That, ladies and gentlemen, is a tyrannical attitude right off the bat and a tyrannical action. And for that, the government should be impeached. However, our House Republicans and our House Democrats have no brass. This governor is guilty of actual criminal conduct and activity within the state of Missouri. But our House and Representatives and our Senate representatives, well, we're going to look at censures. We're going to look at, I don't want to hear anything. I don't want to hear anything from you. If you do not have the courage, if you are so temerarious that you will crawl into a hole and hide from a tyrant like this, then you and I have nothing further to talk about. We are rapidly, ladies and gentlemen, coming to the point in time where it is incumbent on every American to stand up and say, I see treason right there. Want me to spell it? Treason. And I'm calling it out. What more are you waiting for? Are you waiting until they pass a rule or a regulation that says, despite the First Amendment, you're not allowed to use that word anymore? Will you wait until they're knocking on your door? Will you wait until they collapse the economic might of the United States of America? Is that what you're waiting for? Till it's too late? And then you can say, well, it's too late, so I guess I can't do anything. Is that the handy excuse you want? I'm going to tell you what you don't want to hear. The truth is, you're chicken. You're chicken. You are weak, and you are not willing to do the necessary work that is required for us to take this nation back. And you know what? You don't have far to look. Our founders told us exactly what to do. Need I remind you? When a government has reached the point in which they no longer represent the people, it is not a right to remove that government and replace it with one that we feel is better suited to our needs. It is our duty and an obligation. Do you think for a minute that our founders would be sitting around on their hands, bemoaning their fate and whining? They are embarrassed. They are ashamed to call us Americans. I'm going to tell you something. I hear a lot of arguments about this we can do, that we can do. I see headlines all the time. Oh, this is a lawless presidency. What are we going to do? Ladies and gentlemen, the answers are obvious for everyone. And I got to tell you, I'm firmly and rapidly coming to the point where I do not believe that there is any political solutions out there. There's great ones. But there's either not enough people to institute them, or they will take too long. I sat through an Article 5 Convention of the States discussion last night, and I had some questions answered that I had about it. I'm obviously not going to get to the Obamacare site developed by the Belarus hackers, am I? Well, I sat through this conversation last night, and some of the questions that I had in my own mind were answered, but not quite to my satisfaction. I have a lot of others. And I have applauded and I like the concept of the Article 5 principles. You know what my real concern is? It's not that the House will send corrupt people there, and I don't think we have enough time. I don't. In fact, they addressed that last night and said, well, in the event of a national emergency, we think we can push this timeline forward. With all due respect, let me tell you something. If they collapse this economy or pull a national false flag to trigger some sort of and don't tell me that we don't have false flags. The Gulf of Tonkin, the Maine, the Lusitania, Pearl Harbor, 9/11. You want me to keep going? No, that's not conspiracy theory, ladies and gentlemen. That's conspiracy fact. You can pretend it's not there, but it doesn't mean that it's not real. You can stand there knowing that that bear is coming up behind you. You can cover your ears. You can close your eyes and squeeze them tight. But it is not going to keep that bear from taking a swipe at you. Frankly, I am just to the point where I am sick and tired of people telling me that we ought to do something. Then do it! Keep your mouth shut and go do it. What are you waiting for somebody to give you permission? Is that what you're waiting for? You waiting for the Supreme Court to come out and say, it's okay for you guys to revolt? Okay. Have fun with that. You waiting for Congress to come out and say, you know, it's all right if you people want to remove us from office, under force if necessary, and arrest us, charge us and put us in prison. You see, here's the problem. And I don't think Americans are willing to grasp the idea yet that when we have a government which is operating, for all intents and purposes, as the most lawless administration we've ever had in our history, we are not obligated to follow a law that is passed by corrupt people for their own purposes. I mean, where do you get the idea that you have to follow the law because a group of people who don't have your best interest at heart, who utilize that law to strike at you, for all intents and purposes, have passed that law with the specific intent that they've got a loophole you don't have. I will remind you of Samuel Adams. If you love wealth better than liberty, if you love the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom, then go on home from us in peace. Please do. Go. We're not asking for your counsels, and we don't want your arms. The attached kind or the unattached kind. In fact, please crouch down and lick the hands which feed you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. I know I paraphrased that, or at least the intonations of it. But I got to tell you something. It's time that we began to recognize the truth of Thomas Jefferson's words. The tree of liberty must be refreshed from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. Now, this will virtually assure that I'm on the main core database. In fact, that may even get me a visit. But it is the truth, ladies and gentlemen. And it is time that we recognized how far we've actually come. You know, Adam said, liberty must at all hazards be supported. We have a right to it, derived from our Maker. But if we had not, our fathers earned and bought it for us at the expense of their ease, their estates, their pleasure, and their blood. Think about that for a minute. Liberty must at all hazards be supported. What does he mean by that? Well, what is a hazard? The risk that you might lose your job, that you might be imprisoned, that you may be jailed, that you may be injured, maybe killed. Those are all hazards. But liberty must be supported despite the hazards. We have a right to it because our Maker has given it to us, and no man may take that away. But even if that was not the case, even if our Maker had not given us and imbued within us this sense and this seed of liberty, even if we really weren't entitled to it on a spiritual, on a cosmic level, our forefathers still earned and bought it for us at the price of their ease, their estates, their pleasure, and their blood. And so, frankly, I don't care. Even if you say to me, listen, I'm an agnostic, or I'm even beyond that. I don't believe in God at all. I'm an atheist. Okay. So if you don't feel that your natural rights are ordained and given to you by a Maker or a Creator because you don't believe there is one, and this is all just random cells that have kind of stuck together, that's great. Even if that's the case, and I think this is Adam's point, even if that's what you believe, you're still entitled to it, because 1.3 approximately million Americans have died over the course of the history of our nation. They bought it for you at the price of their lives. 1.3 million. 1.3 million Americans have paid the ultimate price so that you would have liberty. And you're going to just walk away from it? Stunning. Stunning. Okay, I didn't get to the Obamacare site developed by hackers. We'll have to hit that one tomorrow. I'll put the link in the YouTube description section if you want to go read it. I got to tell you, folks, I'm pretty much at the stage in the game right now where I don't think there's really any doubt about where we're headed. So I would suggest strongly to you that you begin to take the preparatory measures that are necessary to protect yourself and your family. You can start by going to the battery station and doing that. You can find them at batterystation.com. You can call them at 417-257-7799. In addition to that, you can find them at 303 Washington Avenue in West Plains. They ship nationwide. A lot of the stuff that they have is not on their website. So if you're looking for specific gear, tactical gear, knapsacks, sleeping gear, camping gear, survival gear, give them a call. 417-257-7799. If you've got a legal challenge and you decided that the Tree of Liberty was going to get watered, you might want to give a whole call to Jason Henry. He's a lawyer who handles state and federal criminal cases. What a segue, huh? Number 10 Court Square in West Plains. 417-256-4100 is his phone number. No, I don't advocate violence. I'm not suggesting that we do that. I am telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that our goal and our modus operandi here must be aggressive and offensive. That's it. Because if we stand around here and wait until the bully decides to tire of beating us, we're never going to get there. Go to see the law offices of Jason Henry, number 10 Court Square, 417-256-4100. Visit your friends over at Pizza Hut. Make sure that when you get to Pizza Hut, you go over to the manager there and say, I heard about you on America's Voice, and I just wanted to thank you for supporting that program. They're on Porter Wagoner Boulevard in West Plains. They offer a lunch special from 11 to 2 and 11 to 1:30. I apologize. And it is a salad bar with a pizza bar and pasta bar, and kids eat free. And Tuesdays and Thursdays are, and I believe today is Tuesday, isn't it? Tuesdays and Thursdays are $5 days, so it's actually cheaper than normal. Tuesday nights, kids eat free under 12. Family night. Make sure that you see our friends over at Patriot Cigar and Tobacco, where you can meet like-minded patriots. And by the way, get yourself cigars and tobacco and pipes and all kinds of accessories and accoutrements that go with that. And then our friends over at Wits End Classic Barbershop, where they are doing great haircuts. Also, make sure that you see our newest sponsor, and if you'd like to be a sponsor, please send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org and drop me a quick line with the subject line sponsor. We'll be happy to figure out a way to get you into our lineup. Express Mini Marts 1 and 2. Express Mini Mart 1 is on Route 63, where 14 and 63 meet in Old Granny's Cafe. They handle vapor e-cigarettes and the Tsunami Vaporizer Liquid. They got a special buy 5, get 1 free. They've got a monster ice-cold beer cave, coolers, liquor and wine coolers, snacks, chips, hot food, and all kinds of things like that. Lottery winners. Cheapest fountain drinks you can find. They have another location that is also in discount tobacco. They have the cheapest tobacco you can find. They also have another Express 1 Mini Mart straight across the street from the city pool in West Plains. Make sure that you visit there as well. That's at People's Park. We'll be back in just a moment.
It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
All right, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I am your host here this morning, and I thank you for joining us. You have jumped on in the middle of our program if you're just joining us. If you're capturing us on our website at americasvoicenow.org, that's great news. Glad to have you there. I see all kinds of folks out there who are streaming our program live on our website. I can see kind of some cities out there, Milwaukee and San Luis Obispo. Montreal is back, Chesterfield, and some other locations. I see Kansas, I see Chicago, I see Florida, Texas. So thank you for riding with us on our website. You know, I get to the point sometimes, folks, where I feel frustrated about the fact that we are, for all intents and purposes, losing our nation here. And, there's so many areas that are offensively treasonous that it's almost too hard to count them all and keep up with them all. I mean, I do copious amounts of research. And I got to tell you, the burden of knowing what's going on out there, if you're not one of these people who's a junkie for reading all the things that are going on, I got to tell you, it's like walking around with a 200-pound sack on. And it's a 200-pound sack of, stuff that doesn't smell or feel or I tell you, it's very, very difficult. And I find it eternally frustrating because here I am trying to make sure that I'm awakening and alerting America to what's happening around them, while simultaneously, for the most part, I feel like it's just, it goes on deaf ears. And, personally, I find that extraordinarily frustrating. And so I'm suggesting and I'm asking you to, help us try to get this message out by, sharing this stuff when you see it posted up somewhere. If you've seen an episode here that you thought had value, and even if you don't think it had value to you, maybe it does to somebody else. You know your friends and the people within your circle of influence. How about the idea of sending it to other people and letting them make their own mind up? I mean, when I post stories up on our Facebook page and on our website and Patriot FB, I throw my own little comments in there. And, there's nothing that says, because you may or may not agree with how I think or I view it, and my goal is to just get you to think, right? To use critical thinking skills and to identify what they're not telling you, which is generally more important than what they are actually telling you. And the whole idea is for you to make your own mind up. Well, that goes with, or that goes for your circle of influence as well. You may not like the way I speak. You may not like the way I present things, but someone else might. And there's no reason why you can't send them a quick link in an email and say, I think this guy is a jackass, but by the same token, he's got a message you might want to hear. Or, I don't like the way that this guy talks. His voice sounds like fingernails on a chalkboard to me, but, you might like it. You never know. You just never know. And I got to tell you, the amount of people that are out there talking about the things that we're talking about as an alternative media source. There's a lot of folks out there that are controlled opposition, I think, But I'm not hearing mainstream America talk about the things that we talk about here. I mean, why is it that you're not hearing about the TTIP and the TTP on even mainstream or talk radio, conservative talk radio? Why aren't you? Why aren't we hearing about Common Core and the betrayal and the lies and the nonsense? Why aren't we hearing these things? We're not seeing it on television. That much I get. But even talk radio, which is supposed to be the bastion of liberty and all that nonsense, where are these guys? Where are they with solutions? I mean, look, I'm a little flea on the elephant's butt. And I've written more ideas and concepts, including the pact and a host of others, including legislation. And I've got nothing. I mean, I do this out of my pocket. So where are these guys with millions of dollars and staffs and all of this nonsense? Why aren't they doing anything about it? Why aren't they promoting an idea, a solution? I'll grant you Levin is out there, and and all of these guys have latched onto Levin's idea with the Article 5 amendments. But again, I got to point to the fact that I don't think we have the time for that. I mean, by their own admission, they believe that 2018, or thereabouts, will be about the earliest you'd be able to get one of these amendments to the Constitution approved and voted on. I love the concept of it because it does mean that we can take the nation back. But by the same token, 2018 is a long way away, folks. We're only in 2014, and this guy, this crackpot in office has got another 3 years to go. And God only knows what's going to happen in the 2014 elections. I mean, if they retain the Senate, we're done. We're sunk. Even if we get the Senate on the conservative thinkers' side, or let me rephrase that, because I don't want to put myself in a class with the Republicans, because they're traitors. So let's assume, for argument's sake, that the Republicans get the House and the Senate. Okay. Oh, we got a bulwark to stop Obama. You do you? Let me tell you something. The Republicans are the ones who have passed the National Defense Authorization Act, the Patriot Act. They're the ones who gave us a lot of this NSA spying. They're the ones who are keeping the NSA spying going. Or had you forgotten that? They're no friends of ours. They're not. They're just statists coming at it from another position. They're just tyrants and dictator mini-me's coming at it from another perspective. They all want to rule. End of argument. They all seek to rule. None of them seek to do what's right. You know, H.L. Mencken, he's a guy who was, fairly well-known commentator. He had a saying that he used fairly frequently. The urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. Hello? The urge to save humanity is always a false front for the urge to rule. Well, we're doing this for your own good. You are you? Well, let's look at what Daniel Webster had to say about that. Good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. However, the Constitution was made to guard against the dangers of good intentions. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, really, think about it for a minute. I don't care how good their intentions are. If the end result is your enslavement, or the loss of your job, or the loss of your home, or the loss of your freedom, or your privacy, or your right to speak freely, your right to a trial by jury, your right to bear arms, defend yourself and your family and your nation if necessary. These people are just tyrants in fancy suits with a lot of slick talk and nonsense. And anybody who doesn't recognize that is either willfully ignorant or intellectually dishonest. They don't have your best interest at heart. Either party, either ideology. The urge to save humanity is always a false front for the urge to rule. Well, these people have really good intentions. Okay. Good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. However, the Constitution was made to guard against the dangers of those good intentions. You can ignore that advice, but you do so at your own peril. I'm past the point where I think any of this at this stage in the game matters. I think the goal almost at this stage has to be just awaken people and give them some direction as to where to find enough information to become cognizant and aware of what's happening around them. And, you know, it's like waking them up off of a long, slow sleep. You know, almost kind of like stasis, right? And giving them some food and saying, all right, you know, get to it. You should know what to do. I don't know how else to educate them. You can be educated and be paralyzed in fear and analysis. Which of those two is holding you back? Fear? Or are you in the analysis paralysis mode? We're literally at the point where our nation is almost gone. We have a president who's operating, by everyone's estimation, lawlessly, even his own party. And Congress is impotent. They say, well, there's nothing we can do. What are you talking about? There's nothing you can do. Call the sergeant at arms and have him go arrest him. You don't need some legal justification to do that. Have him arrested. Period. You think George Washington or Madison or Jefferson or Adams would have sat around and said, well, let's see, I think we have to pass a legislative initiative to be able to go ahead and do that. And no. I think they would have said, if necessary, we'll go there in force with muskets and we will take the man in chains. How did they deal with traitors? They hung them. Not without a trial. Not without due process. They didn't mess around. Well, we're a much more civilized society today, and of course we always want to act in the best interest. Stop with that nonsense. You know what that is? That's a chicken liver excuse for inaction. Well, we don't have any kind of congressional rule that would... Stop with that nonsense right now. Take off your suit jacket, roll up your sleeves, Congress, and go get him. By force, if need be. Are you going to try and tell me that if 200 members of the House showed up on the White House and said, we will not leave until this man is arrested for lawlessness? Invite the national media. Make it an event. Desperate times call for desperate measures. Allowing it to continue, acknowledging its existence, and refusing to take action is insane. Insane. He's negotiating this TTIP treaty. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, this thing is an investment and trade agreement. It's designed to drive growth and create jobs. How many times have we heard that? Well, guess what? It does create growth and create jobs. The problem is that it drives the growth away from our nation, and it takes the jobs away from our country, and it redistributes them to other countries, the other members of the treaties. Independent research, according to the TTIP organization of Europa.eu, says the EU's economy could be boosted by as much as 120 billion euros, and the U.S. economy by 90 billion euros. The rest of the world by an additional 100 billion euros. Will you stop with the fake monopoly money? This is a bunch of smoke and mirrors nonsense. You're talking about, 300 billion euros. That's about $500 billion. 400 billion. I mean, if all the participating members collectively got together, all you're doing is swapping money around. How is it that you expect it to get pregnant and deliver more money in the swapping process? I mean, if 5 of us stand in a row and I start handing out $100 bills this way, by the time they come back to me, they're not going to have bred and grown new ones. Unless somebody pockets one, I'm going to get the same number back that I distributed out that way. Aren't I? But the game plan of these pieces of trash is basically everybody pockets every third $100 bill that comes past them. And guess who's the distributor of the hundreds? Uncle Sam. They want to remove trade barriers in a wide range of economic sectors to make it easier to buy and sell goods. It's all a bunch of lies. They want to open new markets for services and investment and public procurement. We're going to spend taxpayer money and buy each other stuff. Services of what? Financial and investment services? That's the problem with America. Nobody ever does any work anymore. All we do is stand around and mark paper down. I mean, everybody's in the service business. The farms are gone. We don't have any left. We import most of our food. The report yesterday said the cattle number in the United States of America is the lowest it's been, 71 or something. 86 million cattle in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, that's a 3-day food supply for 300 million people. We don't produce anything anymore. Even the cars we make, we don't produce. We ship the parts off to someplace else like Mexico or somewhere else and have it made there because the labor's cheaper. But that ain't good enough, boy. These businesses, we got to have cheap labor. So they want to import all these illegals and matriculate in and legalize a bunch of illegals so that they can undercut the U.S. worker, them greedy U.S. guys. I mean, it's ridiculous. I watched the State of the Union speech the other night, and the president is sitting there and he's saying, I'm going to act without Congress. And they're standing up and clapping. You've got to be flipping kidding me. You are clapping your own demise. Who ever heard of such a thing? You're clapping to your own obsolescence. It was embarrassing. I'm sitting there and I'm watching it and I'm like, did these people just not hear the same thing I heard? They were smiling and patting each other on the back. Now they want to pass this trade bill. And this is only one. There's two. The other one is the TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's with the Asian countries. Let me tell you something, folks. There is nothing that will come out of these things except more of the giant sucking sound of resources, jobs, money being drawn off the United States. It's like they're taking blood, but they're never satisfied. The pump never stops sucking. The goal here is to sit here and drain off the fatted calf. That's us. The wealthiest nation on the planet. We're bankrupt. We're $20 trillion in debt. Immediate debt. Long-term debt, you can tack on another $120 trillion. Oh, that's right. We forgot. Those derivatives that are out there that we've guaranteed, there's another $200 trillion worth of those. Oh, you don't want to talk about those. I'm sorry. I mean, let's not face reality or nothing, right? Ladies and gentlemen, the asset value of the planet Earth is not equivalent to what we alone owe. So how is swapping money back and forth between us and the Eurozone going to result in both of us making more? It's the same amount of money. You can take money from the left pocket, put it into the right pocket, put it back in, and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And guess what? At the end of the day, you haven't got any more money than you started with. But somehow there's some magical equation, right? These guys are so smart, they're going to figure out a way to take $5, and if they move it fast enough and often enough, it'll grow to be 10. Please. Meanwhile, you're funding your own demise. And here you are, like a trained seal, clapping your own demise. Gee willikers. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to tackle the TPP and expose it for the environmental extremist movement that it really is. Man, I'm so frustrated today. We'll be right back. Hoo boy. You know, every once in a while I get an email from somebody who's like very negative about, you know, who I am or what I say or the tone or whatever. And I'll be honest with you, I really couldn't care less. You see, I'm not doing this to make friends. I do this on a voluntary basis. Nobody pays me. I've never been paid one red penny in the last 2.5 years for sitting here and discussing these things. And I mean, granted, it's my viewpoint and my opinion most of the time, at least around, you know, to talk around these topics. I mean, the facts speak for themselves. The realities of these programs and idiocies and treasons and activities and actions of these betrayers and tyrants, they are real. But how to interpret them, how to view them, that's, you know, and often my opinion. But, some people say, oh, your rhetoric is too harsh. I beg to differ. I don't think your rhetoric is harsh enough. Well, you're not in the mainstream thinking. No. And the truth of the matter is the mainstream thinking is what got us into this trouble in the first place, isn't it? I mean, if your magnificent mainstream thinking is so wonderful, why do we have a president who's not even an American citizen, can't prove his whereabouts and where he came from, how he got here, or what his real deal is? Is obviously, by the admission of both parties, even his own party operating outside the law, has usurped the authority of Congress and violated the Constitution innumerable times. You've got a Congress that blatantly says, well, we only follow the Constitution in the ways in which we think we should interpret it. You have 9 black-robed knuckleheads up on the Supreme Court who sit there and believe that they are the final arbiters of everything constitutional in the country because they gave themselves some authority. You know what Thomas Jefferson said about that? You seem to consider judges as the ultimate arbiters of all constitutional questions. It's a very dangerous doctrine indeed, and one which would place us under the despotism of an oligarchy. The Constitution has erected no such single tribunal. Well, guess what? He was one of the guys who wrote it. So don't you think you might want to take his word for the intent? But no, these judges, they say, no, we know best. We'll tell you what he meant. I don't need you to tell me what he meant. I read what he meant. He told me himself. I don't need you to layer on your rhetoric and some kind of nonsensical argument and garbage about it to try to figure out what I should think. I see exactly what he meant. He was very clear. Well, we have to interpret what he meant in our modern day and age because, of course, things have changed, and no, they haven't. Who was it who said, there's nothing new under the sun? Well, tyranny is not new. People willing to sell their souls out for short-term personal gain is not new. People have been doing that since the age and the dawn of humanity. People with illusions and delusions of grandeur aren't new. Every corrupt leader of every corrupt government that's ever existed, through all of the known history of humanity, can attest to that. You see, that's part of the problem. It's like everybody's walking around like this is some kind of, something new. It's not something new. This is the same old tyrannical nonsense we've been dealing with for the last 30,000 years. The only difference now is that, there's electronics to make it happen faster or smarter or better or broader or whatever. There's printed paper instead of writing it on papyrus with a quill. But it doesn't change the fact that tyranny is tyranny is tyranny is tyranny. It doesn't change the fact that sycophantic liars and jacklegs of all manner, shapes, and sizes, these carpetbaggers who represent themselves as alleged elected people, who are supposed to represent the interests of the people. I mean, look, find me anybody who's doing that. Anybody. Even Cruz and Rand Paul and Lee, those guys are feathering their own nests at the same point in time while they're doing whatever they're doing. I'll say their motives are a lot purer than the other 99.9%, but let's be candid here, ladies and gentlemen. None of these people have our best interest at heart. I'm not saying we should have anarchy. We have to have government. Government's a good thing. But you know, the government that we were supposed to have, the way this whole thing was built and designed, was a government that, frankly, we never even had contact with, because it ran so smoothly and so seamlessly that, for all intents and purposes, there was really no need for us to interact with it. Now you can't go to the bathroom without the federal government being right there in your lap. They touch every aspect of your life. And if you think this is as bad as it's going to get, come on. Really? Your state governments have completely capitulated. Over what? Money. They've been bought off. 30 pieces of silver, sold your birthright down the drain. Well, we have to have those federal funds. How are we going to be able to maintain these roads without federal funds? I don't know. Figure out a way. But when you take the money from Washington, it comes with strings. And those strings inevitably, invariably, always cost more. So you get $1 billion, and it cost us $2 billion as a state to get it. Well, guess what? We really don't need to borrow like that. And by the way, when we're borrowing, it's not just a monetary scenario. It's far more than that. When we're borrowing like that, we're also giving up our sovereignty, we're giving up our independence, we're giving up our self-determination, we're giving up our right to say, stop, halt right there, you go no further. You're treading on territory that does not belong to you. And the interloper, the usurper, says, are you sure now? Because if you stop me, I'm going to take this away from you, and you know how much you like that money. These people in politics, ladies and gentlemen, are no different than that guy, that actor who committed, for all intents and purposes, committed suicide with a needle stuck in his arm. He overdosed himself. Guy who's made, how many movies? I've seen him in movies. He's a great actor. A miserable human being, but a great actor. So full of self-loathing and self-treason, all he could do all day was lay around and shoot dope in his arm. These people are so full of self-loathing and self-treason, all they can do is run around and piss your money out the window. And pocket some of it in the process. While absconding and kind of collecting and gathering power underneath themselves. It's inconceivable to me that people don't see it for what it is. Or worse yet, see it for what it is and are unwilling to do anything about it. These projects and these treaties that are out there, the way our state and our federal government, listen, our state should be saying, there is no way that we're going to agree to this national treaty. And if you think that because you can claim, why is it that the federal government claims the constitutional right to ram things down our throats, but as soon as you try to go to use the Constitution to defend yourself, they say that's not the right way to interpret it? What makes you the final arbiter of anything? This Constitution doesn't belong to them, it belongs to us. The ground, the hallowed ground of this country, belongs to us. The parks, the farms, the waters, the forests. They're not somebody's in Washington, some nameless, faceless blob of an entity. They belong to us. Our children. According to these people, they don't belong to you, they belong to the village. The village idiots. Look at these people. They're so incompetent that they can't do the most basic things. I mean, look, you don't have to be a web developer to know that when you hire people from Belarus, Russia, who are known for writing malicious code to hack and break into people's computers, that they're likely to put some code in there to steal the information, especially the identity information, including all of the financial information, of every American who legally is obligated and required by law to hand it in. I mean, I could have explained that to a 10-year-old and he would have said, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. Right? I mean, I could have explained this whole picture to a 10-year-old, and he would have said, nope, shouldn't do that. So how is it that thousands and thousands of these sycophantic idiots up on Capitol Hill and working for HHS and Sibelius and all these other traitors couldn't figure that out? Because their minds are clouded. Their minds are clouded by grand delusions and illusions. Illusions of grandeur and delusions. Their first thought is not what's best, what's right. Their first thought is, what's in it for me? I guess that's really what matters. And after I find out what's in it for me, then I'll figure out how to make it work so that I get my piece, and the most amount, then whatever's left over, I'll make sure I do for you guys. When I was at that hearing for the Ozark Scenic National Riverways, I walked up to one of those guys who had flown in there from Omaha, or not Omaha, wherever the heck it was, it doesn't matter, Colorado or someplace. And I said to him, you know, you don't take an oath of office working for the National Park Service. He said, no, we don't. I said, so how is it that I'm supposed to think that you have my best interest at heart? I mean, you're making policies and you're making plans and you're putting in place regulations and rules that affect me, but admittedly, you haven't sworn an oath, so what makes me think that those are going to be in my best interest? Should I just trust you? I don't even know you. For all I know, you're a beer-swilling, wife-cheating thief. Well, I'm none of those things, he said. I said, well, I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying that give me one reason why I should trust you and your judgment. I don't know about you. I don't know what your hopes and dreams and beliefs and integrity is all about. I don't know if you're a man of honor or not. Well, none of that matters, he said. I said, no, none of that matters because you're utilizing police power, force, to do what you think is best, irrespective of what I know to be best for me. Well, what would you have us do? He asked me. I said, well, to be honest with you, if you were a man of honor and integrity, what you'd do is you would leave this job. He said, well, that's not going to happen. I said, no, I know. You're willing to sell us down the river, literally and figuratively. You're willing to sell our birthright away in a state which for the first time in your life you visited today as you got off of a plane today, so that you can put a notch in your personal career pistol grip. That's what this is really about. You're only interested in what's in it for you, so you can move up the corporate ladder. He's like, well, we're not a corporation. I said, no, you're even worse. You see, you don't even have to show profitability. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, these people have nothing that you should desire or want. They seek nothing but your demise. You're merely collateral. As long as they get theirs, as long as there's something in it for them, they don't care if they sell you short-term, long-term, or your entire birthright. They don't care. You're nameless, you're faceless, you're the masses, you're the peasantry, the stupid people, the That's how they view you. They'll never admit that. But their actions speak far louder than their words. That's why these trans-Pacific these intellectual property agreements and the transatlantic treaty, that's just a bigger scale. Government selling us down the river for globalization because they're dancing to the tune that their corporate masters have given them. It's like getting up and doing a jig. If they've taken lobbying money, ladies and gentlemen, they're tainted. It's like a virgin. They're done. You can't have it back. There's no way. So when you look at Rand and you look at Mike and Mike Lee and you look at Ted Cruz, listen, if they've taken lobbying money, it says all I need to know. I'm not saying their hearts are not in the right place. I'm just saying that in accordance with what we know to be a fact and what we've seen before in history, good intentions will always be pleaded for every assumption of authority. The Constitution was made to guard against those people with good intentions. The urge to save humanity is almost always a false front for the urge to rule. How do we get past that? Well, we've lost the concept of citizen legislators, but that is actually the answer. People who go in and agree to do their short-term duty, not out of some personal desire to make money, but out of a desire to do what's right for the nation. It's service, just like, anything else. Our founders were clear. The remuneration people should have gotten for being public servants was not supposed to be a living wage. I mean, it wasn't supposed to be voluntary, but it was not ever meant to be something where, you're making more doing this than you would if you had to go work in the private sector. In fact, it should be less, so that it's a sacrifice, not a career move. I mean, if a guy like this from the National Park Service, who's an engineer, can make more money working for the government than he can working for Boeing or working for IBM or working for Verizon, why wouldn't he? But if he had to take a pay hit to take that job, because that's what he truly loved, or he felt like, I'm going to do my service to the nation as my contribution, well, then that would be a different story, wouldn't it? But when you've got, and for the record, at that meeting, just so you recognize, the people who work for that National Park Service, the top dog there makes $150,000 a year in a county where the average income is $25,000. So, yes, one guy makes the average of 6 people collectively. Oh, and by the way, then they get a 15% stipend on top of that because they live in an economically depressed area. And the people who work under him make $140,000. And there's like 5 of those. And then the people who work under them make $125,000. And there's like 15 of them. All in an area where they're surrounded by people who make on average 25. But they're doing public service. At least that's what they keep telling us. America, look, what it really comes down to is this. It's time for all of us to recognize the jig is up, and unless we make changes within ourselves and about the way we think and about the way we feel and about what our commitments and our integrity and our honor are all about, we're done. even if the white horse rode up with the shining knight in armor and he cleaned house like a hoarder, moved from the disaster to a brand new, fresh, clean house. In 6 months, we'd be living right in the same mess again. All right. I didn't hit any of my topics today. I guess that's what happens when you... Well, you know what? It's my show. You don't like it, don't listen. All right. Let's make sure that we do ourselves a favor here and that you support our sponsors. I would greatly appreciate having you go to them and tell them, hey, you know, I heard you on America's Voice Now. I just wanted to thank you for sponsoring that program. Make sure that you see our friends over at Express 1 and Express 2 Mini Marts in West Plains. They have two different locations. One is on the corner of 14 and 63 in the old Granny's Cafe building. They have a drive-through, by the way, in both of these locations. So if you don't want to get out, you can just pull up to the drive-through and they'll take care of you. They carry, of course, tobacco products in both ones and discount tobacco and cigarettes and stuff like that. In Express 2, which is on 14 and 63, they have beer and liquor and coolers and stuff like that. Snacks, chips, hot food, lottery tickets, and the best fountain drink pricing in town. They start at 39 cents, and they go all the way up to these gigantic, I don't know. The good thing we're not in New York City because you can't sell anything over 16 ounces anyway, right? Make sure that you go up and see those folks. And while you're there, just say, hey, you know what? I heard about your place on America's Voice Now, and I wanted to thank you for supporting them. Make sure that you see our friends over at the battery station at 417-257-7799, batterystation.com. A great place if you need bulk food. There is also freeze-dried food and camping gear of all kinds, ammunition, accessories. Man, it's a great store. Our friends over at Pizza Hut on Porter Wagoner Boulevard, where you can have a salad bar and a lunch bar every day with both pizza and pasta. And that's from 11 to 1:30. And then on Tuesday nights, kids eat free. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, they have their $5 days, which are reduced pricing for the lunch special. Of course, they got wings and all kinds of other stuff. When you're into Pizza Hut, on Porter Wagoner Boulevard in West Plains, make sure you go to Bruce and say, Bruce, thanks very much for supporting AVN. Make sure you see Jason Henry if you've got a legal question or you need assistance or help in any way, shape, or form. You can find him at number 10 Court Square in West Plains. You can call him at 417-256-4100. He handles both state and federal cases for either criminal, handles civil cases, as well as family law for matrimonial and custody and stuff like that. Handles specialty in firearms cases, both federal and state, and criminal law as well. So make sure that you give him a call, 417-256-4100, if you are in need of his services. Our friends over at Patriot Cigar and Tobacco, please make sure that you see them. And Sam Miller is a good guy. He's a true patriotic guy. But he has this cigar and pipe and tobacco shop. And when you go in there, there's some big screen TVs in there and some lounge chairs and things like that, so you can sit in there and have a smoke. Or if you have someone who's a friend of yours, they have gift certificates available. Make sure that you are working with them to get any kind of accessories that you may need in either cigars, pipes, or tobacco products of all kinds. And then make sure while you're there that you slip into you get yourself a haircut from Jason Whittingham, the owner of Wits End Classic Barbershop. And I'm going to go over to see Jason this morning, and I'm going to go get my haircut. And so he does a great job for $10. And I don't need a shave, but he does that hot lather shave with a straight razor and the towel and the whole thing. It's pretty amazing, actually. If you ever really want to pamper your spouse or your husband or your boyfriend or your significant other, get him down there and get him a gift certificate. You won't be disappointed. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. Find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org. Thanks very much. We'll see you tomorrow.